Welcome to the reading of the Course in Miracle Principles in the URTEXT manuscripts. The URTEXT manuscripts, they look like this. And I'm comparing it to the sparkly edition of A Course in Miracles and to the Foundation of Inner Peace, A Course in Miracles books. And before we start reading any further, I just want to tell you that the book claims here, the URTEXT manuscript, that about 50,000 words have been removed from the Course in Miracles Foundation of Inner Peace, short FIP version. And there is a little bit more text in the sparkly edition, but the sparkly edition is still keeping very close to the FIP version. Some of the things there are in different positions, but they're more or less the same amount of words. Maybe there's a few thousand words more. But there is quite a big section which is in here and which is not in there. So some of the things, especially in the beginning here, as Helen was receiving it, and the voice was also telling her, I can't get through to you correctly. They have been, her and Bill, Bill Thetford, they have been cutting out and rewriting it and editing the course until they were happy and they put that FIP version into production. But for me personally, it was very enlightening to read the URTEXT manuscripts, because certain things I felt they were omitted which should have not been omitted. And I find it exciting to get into depth, into the evolution of things. So if you are completely, utterly new to the Course in Miracles and you don't know which book to get, I definitely think you should get the Foundation for Inner Peace version. You can get that from the Foundation on Inner Peace. They are also the guardians of the Course in Miracles, so you are supporting them. Or you can get it off Amazon. If you get it from Amazon, you are still going to buy it off the Foundation of Inner Peace. It is still them who have got the copyright on this particular version. And I think that is what the version you should really get yourself, as also to support the Foundation. And you can also stay here with me and read it, but I want you to be aware that the Course in Miracles is a self-study course. You need to study this yourself, and whatever conclusions I might be telling you, or any kind of conclusions anybody else might be telling you, they are secondary to the conclusions you're going to reach yourself. Some other people, they might help you, some people might be God sent to help you understand, but some actually might be confusing you. So you gotta listen to your higher self, because once you know, and then it's not about belief. So the whole Course in Miracle, it really is about understanding your mind, the way the mind works, and learning to be able to distinguish what is your true self, what is your voice, what is the Christ within, and what is the ego speaking. And the ego is very, very good at disguising itself as well as the Christ within. So it's about training the mind. It's about understanding how your mind works. And then me as a Qigong teacher, recently I have fully immersed myself into teaching Qigong, and I'm telling you from my own experience as a Course in Miracles student, we have a tendency to dismiss the body. We have a tendency to misunderstand what the Course is telling us when it talks about illusions. We have got a tendency to misunderstand it. And my job, my personal mission is for you to return to the center, return to the awareness of yourself. Because again, being Christian or being any kind of other religion, we are somehow taught that the Creator is somewhere out there, and that we need some other kind of authority to guide us to that entity. But the reality is that the source is already within you. It is the spark within you. It's those rays of light which are already within you. And when you are doing Qigong, especially Qigong, you can also achieve this with other techniques. But for me, it was Qigong because it's focusing on the Qi. It's focusing on the life force energy, which is the spark. So you are focusing on that to become aware that there is some other quality to you, other than your physical body and other than your mind. And that is why I am reading this to you if you can't get hold of this URTEXT version, which could be a possibility that you can't get hold of it, but you could probably find it on the internet, and it's in public domain. So if you can't find it, also to actually read it together with you, because I know that not many teachers are actually reading the URTEXT version. So we're going to read this together and try to make some sense of it, and then see where it takes us. Okay? So last week we stopped on miracle number 18, and that confused us a bit. So today I want to go again back to 18, but also there's a really long footnote to 18 which I want to read to you as well, and then we're going to go further. I'm trying to keep these lessons between half an hour to 45 minutes. So when I can see that we have reached this approximate time, then I will stop, and then we do the next reading of the Course in Miracle Principle next week. Okay? So let's begin reading the lesson number 18 one more time. The lesson number 18 is in both the Sparkly and in the Course in Miracle. It is the same, the beginning of it. And it goes like this. A miracle is a service. It is the maximal service that one soul can render another. It is the way of loving your neighbor as yourself. The doer recognizes his own and his neighbor's inestimable value simultaneously. This is identical in the fifth version and in the Sparkly edition. But then it goes on to say, it's in brackets, Miracle 18b. This is why no areas of hatred can be retained. If you retain them, the areas of hatred, your own value is no longer inestimable, because you are evaluating it as X or infinity minus the amount. This is meaningless mathematically, which uses the term inestimable because it's so small, only in the very literal sense. Pun intended, especially for Bill, who originally did not get it, intended as a special sign of love. Okay, so here it's kind of difficult to know, is it the voice talking, or is it Helen talking to herself, or is she talking to Bill? It is difficult to see here. But anyway, so there's a footnote 13, and it goes like this. The following beautiful little discussion of sexual love and specialness in the notes was omitted. This is that particular section. Likely because it does address sexuality and homosexuality, and it does so in individually specific terms. However, it is thoroughly generalizable, so you can generalize the idea which has been personally talked to Bill and to Helen. So however, it's thoroughly generalizable, and what it is true of you and Bill is likewise true of many others, of you and me. This is from the notes, and then it says here, notes 452, and then there's this whole section, and it's very interesting. It's because this particular thing is not even in the URTEXT, it is in the footnotes. And it goes like this. I threw that in happily, which is then scratched out, especially for Bill, because it does need special signs of love. He doesn't really, but he does think so. So this is the voice, or this is what Helen is writing. So is she hearing the voice, or is she thinking that? We don't know, but that is what was in the notes. And it goes on. Now tell him. Now that sounds like it's the voice telling Helen to tell Bill. Now tell him that homosex is sinful only to the extent it is based on the principle of exclusion. Everybody should love everybody. So this is that special relationship again. When we started, after we finished this, like 5 lessons ago, 5-6 weeks ago, about the special relationships. When you go into a special relationship and you basically exclude everybody else for whatever reason that is, it's sinful only to the extent it is based on the principle of exclusion. It is because we are excluding people. If we, for example, do not show love to another person in the family because we just want to be with that one person, because we exclusively love our child and we hate the father of the child, for example. This is quite a common experience I've experienced myself in my childhood. Then this is actually not helpful. And this is sinful in the worldly terms. It doesn't actually mean that the book is saying, that the Course is saying it's sinful, but in what we think is sinful. So it just says, in the extent of exclusion of love. Okay? So let's read that again, just with that little clarification. I threw that in specially for Bill because he does not need special signs of love. He doesn't really, but he does think so. Now tell him that homosex is sinful only to the extent it is based on the principle of exclusion. Everybody should love everybody. And that doesn't mean that everybody should have intercourse with everybody. It means that we should offer miracles to everybody, that we should see the light in everybody else. Seeing the light in everybody else, this is what love really means, is to see the light and also remember the light within yourself. It is wrong to deny the beauty of some souls because of body structures of which you are afraid. This is essentially an unhealthy attempt to limit fear, but fear cannot be limited, just as love cannot have limits. Heterosexual attitudes can be similarly distracted, but do contain a more natural potential. Sex relations are intended for children, not to have them with children, but to procreate. You and Bill have misunderstood sex because you both recognize it as a way of establishing human contact for yourselves. This has led to body image problems. So this is why you can question yourself if that is something which you have experienced within yourself. Children are miracles in their own right. I mean, I love this sentence. For me, children are miracles. They are innocent. They are so incredibly innocent, and we teach them into ego, you see? But somewhere else in the book it says children are born with the ego intact. So then you have to really question yourself. You have to question your own higher self. Your own higher self, especially if there is something which triggers you. It's like, what is this? What does this mean for me? Can you please explain it? Can you clarify it for me? Because it's obviously something which you need explaining about. Okay, so children are miracles in their own right. They already have the gift of life, and their parents provide them with the opportunity to express it. So us parents, and not just the parents of our own children, us adults, we gotta give the means to those children to express the miracle of life. The miracle of life. The miracle of life in each one of us. The miracle of life in nature. In every animal, insect, even the ones you're scared of, spiders, cockroaches and whatever. Mosquitoes, flies. In all of them there is a miracle of life. In every plant we eat there is the miracle of life. And in Qigong we call that Qi. The life force energy. Children are miracles in their own right. They already have the gift of life, and their parents provide them with the opportunity to express it. Nothing physical, mental, or spiritual should be used selfishly. The pleasure from using anything should be in utilizing it for God's will. Let me just repeat that again. Nothing physical, mental, or spiritual should be used selfishly. So just for yourself or for ego satisfaction. It's not supposed to be used for that. The pleasure from using anything should be in utilizing it for God's will. So what is God's will? God's will is that you at all times experience peace, true joy, true love, true beauty, true happiness. Always being aware of those rays of light within you. So, and again, I'm repeating myself over and over, but the reason why I'm doing Qigong is because that is providing it for me. If I do Qigong in the morning, I am more likely to stay in a Christ mind than if I don't. And if I several days in a row don't practice Qigong, this is just how it works for me, then I can fall into a dark hole. And mind you, I'm teaching people all the time. I'm teaching people all the time about remembering themselves, and it's on my mind all the time. I'm constantly learning, and yet I fall into deep holes often. Maybe not as often as other people, but too often for my own taste. And only when I'm through it and out of it again, I can see, okay, all right, I needed to learn this, and I can see it was not that bad. But it's only when I'm through it, while I'm in it, it feels terrible. And that is also something to remember when other people have got their dark moments of the soul. Okay? So, children are miracles in their own right. They already have the gift of life, and their parents provide them with the opportunity to express it. Nothing physical, mental, or spiritual should be used selfishly. The pleasure from using anything should be in utilizing it for God's will. You should live so that God is free to arrange temporary human constellations as He sees fit. Unbelievable. This reminds me of the constellations, family constellations. I've been to a family constellation about 3-4 months ago or something. And the teacher, or the lady, the therapist, she had not done the Course in Miracles herself. But her teacher, the one who taught her, he was a Course in Miracles teacher. And it was very interesting for me to observe this, because she was talking about forgiveness and she was talking about innocence. And I said to her, have you read the Course in Miracles? She said, no, but my teacher has, my master has, and he has told me to do it. So it was very interesting that she somehow, although it came secondhand to her, she kind of has grasped the concept of innocence, and she had grasped the concept of forgiveness. Even though she did not need to go through the study of A Course in Miracles like me for like 15 years. She got this in a much easier, much lighter way. You see? And that is what it says here, the constellations. You see, like I said, sometimes those words, they are there for us to trigger a particular memory. You should live so that God is free to arrange temporary human constellations as He sees fit. And just to say on that note, my room where I'm going to be receiving students, which is just behind me, which used to be the garage where I recorded many of the Course in Miracles lessons, it is finished almost. We just need to paint on the outside, and I'm supposed to receive the students. And yesterday, in my dark moments of my soul, so I was thinking, I have to cancel this, because what about if I get some crazy student who wants too much from me, and comes and bothers me in the middle of the night, and then I can't just say I'm not here, and then I was thinking, but that is not living by the principles of miracles. If I'm closing myself off, making sure that certain constellations don't happen because I'm afraid of them. So if this urge was in me to create this room, to receive those 4 or 5 people in my room, then I should follow this and allow God to express Himself through those constellations. You should live so that God is free to arrange temporary human constellations as He sees fit, not my ego or my fear. Do not interpret this in terms of guilt. Many children which are already here need spiritual parents. And this is what we become as Course in Miracles students and Course in Miracles teachers. We become spiritual parents. Do not interpret this in terms of guilt. Many children which are already here need spiritual parents. The poor are always with us. And many which are born have not been reborn. Now that is an interesting word. Many and many which have been born have not been reborn. What does that mean? So that is something which I'm going to have to think about now, because what does that mean? Does this mean reincarnation? Does this mean awakened here? Reborn? Newborn Christians? Does that mean? What does it mean now? This is now on my mind. The poor are always with us, and many which are born have not been reborn. Human birth, maturation and development is a microcosmic representation of a much larger process of creation and development of abilities. Let me read this again. Human birth, maturation and development is a microcosmic representation of a much larger process of creation and development of abilities. Microcosmic. Remember the microcosmic orbit? When we are circulating the Qi in the microcosmic orbit, in the meridians, in the Du Mai and Ren Mai. It is subject to error as long as the real purpose of free will is misunderstood and misdirected. Remember the free will? The only free will we have is when we are going to take the course, when we are going to be willing to understand. But all the other things, this is already assigned. This is who we're going to have to meet. This is what we're going to have to do. And for me personally, it feels like if you are supposed to come to a certain conclusion in a certain time of your life, if you don't come to this conclusion softly, then life will do it brusquely. It will go boom, because you need to get this conclusion. You need to go in a particular direction. And if you're refusing to go into this particular direction, then life will constantly hit you really hard, because it wants you to go this way. And you go, no, I don't want to go that way. And then eventually you go. That's how you're supposed to be, the life. So human birth, maturation, development is a microcosmic representation of a much larger process of creation and development of abilities. It is subject to error as long as the real purpose of free will is misunderstood and misdirected. The real function of parents is to be wiser than the children in this respect and to teach them accordingly. And then it says here in brackets, this must be Helen putting it in 2 brackets and says, this upsets me. So this is the finish, this is the footnote for 18b. And then it goes on to Miracle Principle 19. It goes like this. Miracles rest on the law and order of eternity, not of time. Again, miracles rest on the law and order of eternity and not of time. Then it goes to Miracle 20, which in the Foundation for Inner Peace is actually all 19. It goes like this. Miracles are an industrial necessity. Industry depends on cooperation, and cooperation depends on miracles. And then it says here, see page 8. This paragraph is corrected in text 1b, 22k. It says correction. And don't lose sight of the emphasis on cooperation, or they're not singular. So you're not supposed to do it alone. That point about industrial necessity should read corporate necessity, referring to the body of Christ, which is a way of referring to the church. Okay? But the church of God is only the sum of the souls He created. But the church of God is only the sum of the souls He created, which is the corporate body of Christ, which is the sonship, which is the corporate body of Christ. Correct to read, a miracle makes souls one in God, and leave in the next part about cooperation. So if we read this correctly now, then it says, so in 19 it says, miracle make minds one in God. They depend on cooperation because the sonship is the sum of all that God created. Miracles therefore reflect the laws of eternity, not of time. So you can see here how in the beginning, which I can understand, so it's human. In the beginning, some of the stuff came through clearly, but some of the stuff didn't. And there was a lot of correcting going on, pushing one thing forward, pushing it backward, something being corrected the next day. I mean, we don't know how long it took Helen to take this. Maybe it took her 5 days to take this, what I have just read to you. It might have taken her a week. Maybe it took her a month. You don't know that. Or maybe it took her a day. We don't know how long it took her to do this. Probably in the notes, if you get hold of this online, in the notes, maybe there's a date on each one of those stenographed notes. We don't know. So let's read this again. Miracles are an industrial necessity. Industry depends on cooperation. Cooperation depends on miracles. But then it says here, you're supposed to replace industry with cooperation, and it's meant the Church of Christ, and so on. And what turned out to be then, miracles make minds one in God. They depend on cooperations because the sonship is the sum of all that God created. Miracles therefore reflect the laws of eternity, not of time. And I think what is happening here is that she needed to get the word right. So she didn't get the word sonship. She didn't have it ready. So after lots of trial and error, she figured out that this should be the word sonship. And the reason why I'm coming to this conclusion is sometimes when I'm teaching Qigong or something, or even the Course in Miracles, if I don't get the word right, I mumble, and I don't have the right word until the word finally settles in my mind, and then it's there, and then I can use it. I can always recall the necessary word, and that's what I can see is happening here. So let's get to the next miracle. It says 21. So it's miracle text, principle 21. Miracles are cobwebs of iron. They unite human frailty to the strength of God. And here it says, see page 7. So this is again going to be corrected forward. But so we're just going to leave it as it is and go to the next miracle. So then we're going to miracle 21b. HS considered changing iron to steel. So Helen, she was considering to change iron to steel. And then it goes correction. No, you're not supposed to change iron to steel. Steel would not be a better word. Steel is very useful, but it would have to be tempered by fire. Iron is the raw material. The point of miracles is that they replace fire, thus making it unnecessary. This is so interesting. I love it. I absolutely love it. So fire in Qigong is intriguing me because fire is always got a little bit of a negative concoction in Qigong. It's the heat and fire and cooking and overcooking the body or overheating. The arguments are heated. And then for me, it's like, no, but it's synonymous for light. Fire stands really for light. And the fire which we are making, it is like an imitation of light. And I think it's beautiful here. It says here, steel is very useful, but it would have to be tempered by fire. Iron is the raw material. The point of miracle is that they replace fire. The light replaces fire. Fire is standing in for the light, thus making the fire unnecessary. The cooking, the heating, the overcooking that we want to replace. The miracles are the light. And then fire becomes unnecessary, and fire is the one which is pushing you into the direction. So if you follow the light, nobody needs to push you and hurt you to get you into the right direction. So then the next miracle is 22. Miracles are natural expressions of total forgiveness. Through miracles, man accepts God's forgiveness by extending it to others. The second step is inherent in the first. because light cannot tolerate darkness. Light dispels darkness automatically by definition. So darkness is the absence of light. And wherever there is light, darkness cannot be, except when the darkness creates a body and closes itself up, then it has got darkness in the center of it. That's why I always call it the pocket of darkness. There is no darkness anywhere as long there is light. The only way, like I said, you can produce darkness if you close it up, if you make a box and you're excluding the light. Light does not tolerate darkness. Let's read that one more time. Miracles are natural expressions of total forgiveness. Through miracles, man accepts God's forgiveness by extending it to others. When you forgive somebody else, it basically has to come through you. It's like a surge of water. For you to give forgiveness to that one, it has to come through you, and then you realize that God is also forgiving you. The second step is inherent in the first, because light cannot tolerate darkness. Light dispels darkness automatically by definition. So there's some of it in the 21, some of it is not in here. It goes to others, but the second sentence, I don't know, it's not in here. Then 22b goes on to say, explanatory instructions. Miracles are associated with fear only because of the fallacy that darkness can hide. Man believes that what he cannot see does not exist, and that his physical eyes cannot see in the dark. This is a very primitive solution and has led to a denial of the spiritual eye, which always depends on light. Remember the biblical injunction, may I never forget that thine eye is ever upon me, beholding the evil and the good. And now then is a footnote 16. This is the Proverb 15:3. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch upon the evil and the good. And then it says 22c. There are two stages, one lower and one higher, which are involved in the escape from darkness. First, the recognition that darkness cannot hide. This usually does entail fear. You can't hide. You can't hide yourself. And then the second, the recognition that there is nothing you want to hide, even if you could. This brings escape from fear. It is actually in the Foundation for Inner Peace. It goes like this. Miracles are associated with fear only because of the belief that darkness can hide. You believe that what your physical eyes cannot see does not exist. This leads to a denial of spiritual sight. You see, this is a different kind of message. I personally like this message better. Let's read this again. There are two stages, one lower and one higher, which are involved in the escape from darkness. First, the recognition that darkness cannot hide. This usually does entail fear. And second, the recognition that there is nothing you want to hide, even if you could. This brings escape from fear. And then it says, and then in the footnote, it goes on to say, in a lengthy omitted segment, most of which is personal material, which occurs just before paragraph 22c, which is the next one, the following segment occurs in the notes, which may be an original miracle principle inadvertently completely omitted. And here it goes from the notes. Miracles depend on timing. This is why you shouldn't waste time. I told you a while back that time would cease when it was no longer useful as a learning aid. There is a way of speeding you up, and that is by leaving more and more time for me, so you can devote it to miracles. I so much would like to do this. This is one of my biggest conflicts within myself, because I want to devote more time to God and miracles and light, and I cannot. But then certain things happen in my life, and then I just can. So this is very interesting. So let's read this one more time together. Miracles depend on timing. This is why you shouldn't waste time. I told you a while back that time would cease when it was no longer useful as a learning aid. There is a way of speeding you up, and that is by leaving more and more time for me, so you can devote it to miracles. Amazing. Just you being here, this is a miracle, because you helped me get on with it. It helps me a lot that I know that you're there. We are still on miracle lesson 22. It says here, correction. Point 21, cobwebs of iron. This is upside down as stated. The part about uniting human frailty with the strength of God is all right, but the explanation stops too soon. If iron is the raw material, cobwebs can't become the iron. That is only the way it seems, because cobwebs are associated with frailty and iron with strength. If you look carefully at the phrasing, you will see it is reversed. One point already tells you that miracles reverse the physical or lower order of laws. So this is referring to the cobwebs of iron, which we read in the middle of today's lesson. And then it goes on to say, this is 22f, the raw material of iron is heavy but crude and stands for the body, which is a crude creation. It's Jing in Chinese medicine. The cobweb concept is closer to how the body should be regarded, i.e., as an airy and temporary home which can just be blown away with a slight breeze. The point should read, a miracle reawakens the awareness that the spirit and not the body is the altar of truth. This is the recognition that leads to the healing power of the miracle. And this is lesson number 20 I have put here. So they have put this particular miracle here in number 20. Miracles reawakens the awareness that the spirit, not the body, is the altar of truth. This is the recognition that leads to the healing power of the miracle. Interesting. So we are going to stop here at this particular miracle 20, which has been put in afterwards and moved forward. I have got a little bit of headache, and I have got to think about this extra miracle down here, which goes, and miracles depend on timing. This is why you shouldn't waste time. I told you a while back that time would cease when it was no longer useful as a learning aid. There is a way of speeding you up, and that is by leaving more and more time for me, so you can devote it to miracles. I love this one. I love this miracle principle. Okay, so let me have a look what is going on here. Is the number 20 the same? Miracle reawakens. Yeah, this is the same. In Sparkly and Foundation for Inner Peace, it's the same. Miracles are natural signs of forgiveness. Through miracles, you accept God's forgiveness by extending it to others. Yes. But in 22, the Sparkly edition starts, it's about double as long than on Foundation for Inner Peace. And 22 in this particular book is still going. 22 has started here and is going over the whole page, plus we have got the footnotes here. So in the next week, we are going to start again on this. Here I have marked it as 23, so this is a miracle number 23 in Foundation for Inner Peace. It's quite interesting. There has been a lot of rearrangement. So we are going to read this next week, as many things have been rearranged here. And in today's class was really, really interesting about this additional miracle principle, which is not in any of the versions. So this is quite interesting. But I remember that there was some sort of timing I have read somewhere. So they might have put this particular bit in somewhere completely different in the book. So I'm going to refer you to the preface to this, because the man who put all this together, Doug, he was saying that it is prone to errors in the beginning, because they needed to get this whole thing running and oiling this machine, understand how it works. But like I said, I think I agree with him here that there is an extra miracle which has been completely omitted and is nowhere. And I think it's actually quite an interesting miracle. Miracles depend on timing. This is why you shouldn't waste time. I told you a while back that time would cease when it was no longer useful as a learning aid. There is a way of speeding you up, and that is by leaving more and more time to me, so you can devote it to miracles. Beautiful. And with that, I leave you today. I'm very grateful that you're here. Please leave me your comments, and love, light and Qi to you. Don't forget to practice Qigong.